all so much for staying. I know it was a long show, but a good one, and I'm excited to get to talk to you all. So tonight's Theater Plus event is called PostScript, wherein we get to have a question and answer session with the actors. I ask them a few questions, and then we open up the floor for all of you to ask them questions as well. My name is Virginia Hirsch, and I am the Artistic Apprentice at Triad Stage this season. So I was the production dramaturg in the room for 2 Trains Running, so I was there through the whole rehearsal process, and have the wonderful opportunity to get to talk to all of you through all of our Theater Plus events. So before the actors come down, I like to get started with some discussion. And for all plays, I like to ask this, but I'm really interested to hear what the feedback is on this one. Was there a particular moment that struck you? Is there something that you think will really stay with you? I know you just saw a lot of theater, but was there something either a line or a physical moment in the play or a transition or something that you think will really stay with you?
I believe the transitions, they were very, they assist in the story. As we had that pause in time, and as we explored the exploration through the show, that stuck out to me. The slow motion, she was, it was,
Yeah, so I want to clarify for anyone who couldn't hear, we were talking about the transitions and how they really stuck out, and I'd love to hear, if anyone else had that stuck out to them in terms of this. Yeah, right there.
I agree with you. They were beautiful. I mean, they were beautiful. The way of doing it, and it just slowed it down and let you sort of appreciate what just happened.
Yeah, I wish the director was here. I can speak for him because, I was there during the inception and execution of that. Keith Arthur Golden, our director, was really, because none of that is in the text of the play. It's just end of one scene, beginning of another. And with collaboration through our sound designer and our actors, he thought to show the passage of time and to allow that sort of, handoff from scene to scene. You see the actors, they're all moving at different paces. Some of them are in slow-mo, some of them are kind of moving quickly, and you get that sense of the routine of each day in their lives. I think this play is so interesting because it takes place over the course of 6 days. Which I think is probably biblical, and probably that day of rest for Hambone's funeral was intentional on the part of August Wilson. And yeah, I think that really, it slows you down and allows you that moment to connect to the characters. I think for me, the one that always stands out is after Act 2, Scene 4, so after Rissa and Sterling, that dance, the way that they disconnect and walk away from each other. Yeah, it really gives you time to soak in everything you just heard. Absolutely. Any other moments that really stuck out to you, or lines or monologues that you think will stay with you after tonight? Yeah, right there.
Well, I think that the hand showing up at the end with all of this, it's a very dramatic ending with this bombs going off.
Yeah, absolutely. And you usually can hear like a visceral reaction from the audience, like when people get it, or because some people in the back can't see it at first, or yeah, there really is a moment of connection there. Was there someone else? Oh, hey, welcome to the water and sodas. Question here before I introduce.
Well, I was talking about other moments when Memphis really shifted and came out really strong in a defiant stance. That was a real shift.
Yeah.
And I liked it. And it seemed to shift everything after that.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, yeah, we're here.
I was just going to say, sadly, that when Memphis is talking about the mule, that really, you get a really clear picture of the just deep sadness and the futility.
Yeah. For people who didn't hear, she's talking about the mule speech. Yeah, and I think it sneaks up on you that that embedded trauma that he has, and he just, is clearly back there in that moment. Yeah, it really is, again, another audible response moment. I think there are a few in the play that consistently people sort of, viscerally connect to. So I'd like to introduce our Sterling. So if you'll introduce yourself, where you're from, school, those sorts of things.
School?
Just where you're from, your background.
I'm Jael. I'm from Atlanta. I trained at SUNY Purchase, New York. Yeah, there should be more people here, so I guess I could talk more. My background. Yeah!
Hello, my name is Alexis Jael.
questions for each of you before we open up the floor for open Q&A. I'll start with Alexis or Rissa. So I'd love to tell us about the sugar. For you as an actor, you know, August Wilson is notoriously a very dense playwright who has so many layers of meaning in his work. And so I'd just love to hear for you, how have you interpreted that, you know, the withholding and you being generous with your own? What do you think the meaning is? How have you sort of tackled that? Easy question, right?
Wow, that is a great question, thank you. I really just took it to mean, you know, you have to ask. It was also with the help of Keith and like our director in determining what is it about Rissa that makes her so attractive, like magnetic, if you will. And it's just the idea that he would like to say that she gives neither way. She doesn't get angry. She doesn't get too far into men or into the men that visit this restaurant. So it's one of those things that's about, you know, you have to ask for that. You have to ask for me to be accessible to you. And I think that that's a very important narrative for women, especially women of color, especially in this time. Thank you.
I'd love to get introductions from those who just joined us. So the character you played, who you are, all sorts of things.
Hello, good evening. I'm Rob Bobb-Semple, Mr. West. I just thought this was a good scene. Marvin Bell, I played Holloway.
Great. So I'm fielding a question for everyone, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience. Thank you so much. So Sterling, I think what fascinates me about Sterling is that he seems like such an example of a character who is more than meets the eye. And on paper, you know, he's a convicted felon and is this person that people think is hardened. He's so dimensional. You know, Wolf thinks that he's dangerous and is afraid of him, but he also has a sweetness and a naivety about him. And so I'm just curious for you, when you dive into a character who has, I don't know if it's conflicting, but so many facets to him, do you look at the actions of the character? Do you look at what he says? Like, how did you start to unravel the layers of Sterling? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm gonna really try to be not long-winded because that's a really good question. It's a really loaded question. I think the process I go through is what the character says, what they say about themselves, what other characters say about them, what their actions say, what they actually do every day, the things that they win or lose. So like, if I go and get some flowers and I bring them to her, but there's also, okay, I'm trying to condense these thoughts. Let me answer the other part of your question. Yeah, so because he's a character or a person that is seen as violent, but also can be very sweet in a very childlike sort of way, naive sort of way. I kind of envision him like a dog, you know. Like anybody that is pushed into a corner, is pushed into the brink, you know. And something hit me recently in the script. He says, "I think I got bad luck," or they said I had luck, but they didn't say what kind it was. I think it's bad luck. What you think? And recently that hit me because he started off with nothing, and so. But there's still something really grounded about, for instance, like a dog, a stray dog, super violent, super dangerous. You know, you meet it out in the woods, but they're so sweet. You know, there's something endearing. So, but yeah, I look at a whole bunch of things. I don't want to hog the mic. I look at so many things. So that's a long answer.
I'll pop over to Holloway and then jump over to West. Holloway feels to me like the Homer of, you know, a modern day Homer or something. And I'm curious, you have so many monologues in the play, and I'm curious, do you have a favorite one? Is there one that you particularly connect to? He's just a long-winded guy, and he has so much to say about the world around him. And so is there a moment in the play that you feel you connect most to or just sort of enjoy with the audience? Because I know some nights they're responding to the things that he's saying, you know, as we go, and so I'm just curious how that's kind of continued to evolve over performances.
No. Yeah, there's a lot. He has a lot to say, and when I first started studying this part, I just started modeling that. I grew up with 4 brothers, and I had the second from the oldest. I had 3 older, 1 younger. The second from the oldest was the model. To this day, he still talks. He's got a book he's been writing since he was 35, and what year is this? Yeah, he'll be 70 this year. He hasn't written the first word of the book, but he's been writing it since he was 30. But he's a talker, and he goes on. The difference between him and Holloway seems to know what he's talking about. While what he has to say makes sense. As far as the favorite speech, I like the grandfather speech because that's where the transition took place in Holloway. That's where he went from being this ugly, hateful, I want to destroy another human life, to being, I can't do that, and I'm going to look for the silver lining and look for the brighter side. And he found something that he really believes in. I've always said that he is a lobbyist for Aunt Esther. Yeah. In fact, when Sterling comes in, he starts talking about getting his luck changed. That motivates him. Oh, well, I'm going to sit in and see Aunt Esther, because that'll get his luck changed. And that'll make his life a whole lot better. And in reality, it kind of does, because his transition comes after he goes to see Aunt Esther, as far as I can see. But that's my favorite speech, is the grandfather speech, because that's where he explains where his life actually took a change. He had this ugliness before, and then all of a sudden, it became this. Thank you.
Terrific. So one more question before I let all of you, I'm sure you are burning with questions. So for West, to me, West stands out from the landscape of the rest of the characters just because of his status in the community and with everyone else. I mean, he is clear, like everyone else, they're sort of negotiating, but he is clearly above them, you know, in terms of the social currency of the group. And I'm curious, it's so interesting to me that despite his wealth, that he is possibly more frugal than any other character in the play. And, you know, whether it's not buying the nicer casket for Hambone, you know, or not throwing the $20 in the river. I mean, there's so many examples of how he withholds. And I'm just curious, and even the pride of the broken glass, I'm just curious for you, where you think that comes from. Why does he, you know, with Rissa, who is making less than everyone else, well, other than Sterling, will give away her money, but he keeps it in. I don't know if that makes sense. Just the connection to his holding on to what he has, even though he has so much.
Oui. His wife is always on his mind, and he misses her tremendously. And I think that's where he has this protection that he holds on to, and whatever he does, he remembers her. If it's whatever dime he may save, it's because of her. She's not around here, you know, I mean, to comfort him, to be with him. You know, he's a lonely man. He's a lonely man, and he feels he has to hold on to something. You know, he's also a generous man, and not necessarily monetarily, but as far as helping others and making sure, as Holloway said, you know, that before folks can even bend down, you make sure he catches them. You know, he treats folks, you know, humanely, if I could use that word, even though it's a kind of deadly character. And what I could just add as a person, that I was born in Guyana, in South America, and I grew up a block and a half away from one of the more popular funeral homes in Guyana. And I used to hang around that funeral home, go in there and watch them embalm folks. So West just takes me back. You know, I mean, so many years ago, so many decades ago, and I really feel that connection, even though it was when I was, well, about 10, 11 years old, which was quite a long time ago. And but yes, just to come back full circle to answer your question, you know, he feels he has to hold on to something. You know, he would give away something other than his money, and which is his comfort, because that's what he's there for at the funeral home. If that may answer your question. Thank you.
Great, so now we can open the floor for some questions from the audience. Do you have any questions for our actors here? Yes, right there.
Some of us up here remember 1969 pretty well. We were adults then, and maybe some of the cast does. I was wondering, the younger cast members, how did you get a sense for what it was like then? Because you weren't even born yet.
I made it up.
That's
I
one
made
way.
it up.
I think a big part of it is, well, yeah, but also the music. The
Oh
music.
yeah, I definitely
music-
made a playlist.
The music is a huge, and it might even be overlooked, but music is a huge thing. Music culture influences human culture so heavily. The musical artists, what they were doing, what they were wearing, what they said. So even just listening to them, even having a playlist and listening to the music in like the dressing rooms, and even trying to play around with the dances. There were times I would get into in my suit, and like these suits, I'm not used to wearing suits like that. Any suit I have is a fitted suit, but this suit is like a waist high, kind of under on my belly button, you know. So it feels awkward. So I get in it and dance. You know, I do like the little dances they do. I do like the little twists and do stuff like that, you know, because it's those things that kind of people move differently because they did different dances. They walked more, you know. So like things like that kind of start with one thing, and then I just kind of let it spiral. So I would say the music, but then also pictures and
Sure, the
script.
clothing too, the costumes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just being in the costume. But in terms of, I mean, what I found in working on a lot of period pieces is that people aren't that different, and it's really just the clothes we wear, the things we eat, kind of the things we do. But so if you can find like a piece of like, okay, yeah, this is how they dance like, or they. If you can find one thing, sometimes that's all it takes to like ground you. And then from there, if I live truthfully in the performance, you'll see somebody from 1969 and won't know the difference. You know, so you get like one good thing that I can really hold on to, I can focus on during the work. And that tends to help me. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, right here.
The concept of Aunt Esther is so interesting to me that all of these men give up their control to go see Aunt Esther. And makes me wonder, does that concept represent a God figure?
A dramaturgical note before, I'm sure the cast has a lot to say about that. I think it's really interesting to note that Aunt Esther, when we find out her actual age, if you subtract it, it's the first year that slaves were trafficked to America. And so as a figure who is literally sort of carrying the history of the knowledge, and again, also having an influence on karmically, you know, their paths, I think gives an interesting metaphysical, you know, and obviously her age, and biblical, as Sterling says, connection for sure. But I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say.
Hi. I actually love this question. Thank you for asking. There is a documentary about August Wilson and his work, The Ground on Which I Stand, and in that documentary, the actress Felicia Rashad speaks about Aunt Esther. And in the dialect, sometimes you can hear Memphis say it. He says, Aunt Esther. And it should be Aunt Esther because it sounds like ancestor. And Aunt Esther is representative ancestry, which is why the dramaturg, like the numerology of her age is so important, and why the numbers in this play have to stand out is because of that, for me, and also just in terms of that aspect of history and August Wilson's work, which is why I love that. I love that she is involved in almost all of the plays, and I love that you mentioned that all of these men just go see her and she's never seen. And that tossing of the money, you know, they give it to the river and she gets it. And I think that that's also a act of worshiping a being.
Yeah, I have a comment about Honest. First of all, Honest first appears, she actually appears in the first book of the cycle, which is, what is it, 1904? Yeah, Gem of the Ocean. She's actually a major character in that, and I don't think she appears in any of the other 9, but she's mentioned in just about all of them. Well, no, I don't know if she's mentioned in Maureen. She's definitely not mentioned in Maureen because that's in Chicago, and she's not mentioned in Fences or Piano Lesson. But I know she's I did Piano Lesson. They were talking about. I relate to her in a different way. There was a black science fiction writer named Octavia E. Butler who wrote 2 books that featured a particular character. It was a woman who lived, she never established how long the woman lived, but she was not only, had lived for a long time, she was also a shapeshifter. She could do things like, she was on a boat, she could jump in the water and swim, become a dolphin and swim with the dolphins. She would go to a village, she would live in a village for 50 years and she would age. And then when she thought it was time for her to die, she would just disappear, and then she would go to another village and arrive there as like a 20-something-year-old woman. And that puts me in mind of Aunt Esther, because Aunt Esther is, like they said, you go back 349 years from 1969, and you're looking at 15-something. So I relate to her in that sense, and I haven't done the research, but I don't know if August Wilson connected with the character that way, or the character, or Octavia Butler connected with the character because of August Wilson. But that's something I'm thinking about looking into. But I honestly believe, and I'm going to get enough people here to kill me on Twitter if I say this. I honestly believe that people like that existed, who just lived and managed to live without telling anybody all their secrets. But I still think there are people around now who are a couple of 100 years old. We just don't know who they are because they've had all the experience at hiding. Yeah, I know it sounds strange. But I love Honest. I think she's one of the greatest characters. I wish she had just written a whole book about just her, with her whole history and everything.
Other questions? Time for a couple more. Yeah, right there.
I'm curious, because there's so many young people in the audience tonight, and I wondered, particularly there was a young man who really had a loud laugh. And I wonder about the impact on your pacing and timing when pausing and in reaction to the audience, and if it was different with a lot of young people than some of the other audiences.
Yeah, is there someone in particular who wants to field that one?
It's, well, we can't allow the audience to control our rhythm. Because with August Wilson, you know, there's so much musicality in the writing, and there's that rhythm. It may be broken, you know, because of a reaction, but to try to have someone or members of the audience try to control you, you can really get yourself into trouble. Even though you've paid your money, but we've got to make sure that you understand what's going on and not really loosen out, because you could lose a very important message because of a reaction. And on that point, I'm going to say this too. As you might have read in the playbook, that this is my 6th August Wilson. When there predominantly African audience or black audience, it's a different show. It's a different show because of the reactions. They verbalize it more. No, she didn't say that. and that's the kind of reaction that you get. Not that the others are not enjoying the performances, but to use the Queen's English, us folks, express ourselves more. Like the young man, he was getting his money's worth. We heard him backstage, and somebody was able to identify him. But we can't allow the audience to really, especially with August Wilson, because there are those metrics in these lines, and you can't ad lib with August Wilson because you lose that rhythm.
I actually want to speak on that too. No, I don't need it. It actually makes me feel weird. Oh, it helps with that? All right. Okay. I think we do have to hold for things. So in terms of like how do you manage it when it happens, we do hold. But in the case like tonight, and then even in the case we had some high schoolers, we had a lot of high schoolers which they laugh at a bunch of things that we're not used to people laughing at. In fact, that night, there was something, they were laughing so much at our last little bit right here that I couldn't even get my last line out. But a certain way, like, for me, I don't know, I'm the type of actor where, like, if I can find a way to be grounded with my scene partner or become regrounded, then I always search for that. So, like, even though everybody couldn't hear me say that last line, I still said it to her. So that might happen, something like that, and the audience may not hear it, just because if we're going on a rhythm we don't want to stop, maybe I have to keep going. But as long as I can reground myself. But even tonight, like, there were moments things were really funny, and I had to find a way to, I had to think of elephants so I wouldn't think of monkeys. I'm thinking of monkeys because monkeys is funny, like it's hilarious, people are laughing, but then I'm like, no, elephants. And so then that's literally what I'll do sometimes if the laughter throws me off in such a way that's like, okay, yeah, that's actually really funny. What somebody just did is actually kind of making me laugh. Either that, or you use it as the character. You may let yourself laugh at it, and that may take you somewhere else. Yeah, so that's what I would say. But sometimes it's just, what can you do? Yeah.
Hold on for dear life. That's my method.
All right, we have time for one more question. I thought I saw a hand over here a second ago. Oh, right there.
What excited you about doing this play? Why do you think it's important to do now?
Wow, there you go.
I have loved August Wilson's work since I started reading it in high school. And this is my first August Wilson play. And one, I love it's magical, it's paranormal how his work is articulated. It's even paranormal how it came to him, because he says that he would hear the voices and then he would write them. He would hear the characters speak and write them, and you couldn't pay for that kind of genius. And I think that they are, all of the plays, no matter which one you do, they all have a message that stands outside of time and within time at the same time. And I think that this play is just important to do because gentrification happens and people are moved out of places and displaced, and people need reparations. They do the work, and then they don't get their 30 acres and they just don't get. So, I think it's important to have that.
Really, really quickly, since I just talked. One line that always hits me a lot, I was like, where is she? One line that always hits me a lot is the line about going back to pick up the ball. There are just some universal themes in this show, so many things that as I've worked on it, it's like, these plays are like books that come into your life. And I don't know if I thought, oh, this is such an important thing to do now, but as I did it, I was like, wow, this is affecting me like this. I imagine what it's doing for the audience. And but like just that idea of going back to pick up the ball, like how many people dropped it and just kept going. Just kept going. And like just that courage to say, okay, yeah, I actually have to go back. You gotta walk all the way back and get the ball and come back. And so themes like that, I think, will always be universal and timeless as well. That's the genius, partly the genius of August.
My answer is simply, it's August Wilson. I mean, when you do August Wilson, it's for the same reason people do Shakespeare, for the same reason people do Chekhov and all the other, Tennessee Williams and any other great playwright. You do it because it's that person's work, it's that author's work, and that author does and will transcend time, which is why we're still doing Chekhov and why we're still doing Shakespeare and a lot of the other places, people that are being done. It's because in 2019 we're doing it. They're going to be doing August Wilson in 2068. They're going to be doing it in 2168. It's just going to last that long. His plays are forever, as I see it. His plays are just forever, and they're always going to show people a sketch of Black life that no other playwright has ever painted. That was profound, wasn't it?
Very.
She wanted to speak one in. No, it's fine.
Great, yeah, we're here.
Why did the court give him $35,000 for the diamonds? Is there any particular reason?
Why the 35,000? Anyone thoughts?
Nathan.
Nathan's
Oh,
not here.
No, but I mean, I think it relates to on Esther.
Yeah.
He doesn't get it until he goes.
Uh,
I don't know if you had anything on that in particular.
I mean, what exactly is the question?
Like, why do you think?
the court gave him $35,000?
Why do I think he got the 35,000? I think he got the 35,000 because he put the $20 in the river. I honestly believe if West had put the $20 in the river, he would know where his wife was, where his wife's spirit ended up. She would have told him. Whether it was good news or bad news, she would have told him. I believe that Sterling calmed down considerably from a visit to Aunt Esther. She told him what to do, he went and did it, and he came out of there, and he still doesn't know what at the end of the play, he still doesn't know what she wrote on the note that's in his shoe. But he knows that he went to see her, and he instantly got the same kind of faith in her that Holloway had in her, and that Holloway expounds about her all the time. And that's what happened to Memphis. He went and saw Aunt Esther and came out of there feeling like everything gonna be fine. And that's what I think that's what she does to people. People leave out of there feeling like, I think she is the real prophet. I think she has the real effect on people. She's not just talking again.
And I think a quote that stands out to me from the play every time, it's in the first scene, when Sterling says, if you know how to take something apart, you should be able to put it back together. And that to me really speaks of August writing the cycle of, a culture that's had their history dismembered. And I think her making people whole, it's just a connection to all of that.
Yeah, need to go. I need to go.
Yeah, super. I just on that same question, I like to think of it as one of those situations in life where you're trying to make a decision on what you should do, and you kind of feel like, if we're talking about good and bad, you know what you need to do, and you do it, or you don't do it, and things are really going bad, and you're looking for an answer, and then you do it, and it seems like suddenly things start working out, and you're like, nah, that's not why, like that's not, but it seems like everything just sort of aligns at the same time, and so it's kind of mystical, throw $20 in the river, but like I had an instructor once, he would be teaching us these interesting sort of Balinese mask, energetic things. And he would say, hey, we'd be like, man, I feel different after this. What's going on? He's like, I don't know, it's 50% heebie-jeebie, 50% reality, so I think I love that it's in there because it kind of speaks to that thing. There's some sort of mysticism in all of our lives that we haven't quite understood. We don't really know if did I do this and that's why that happened, or did this happen at the same time I did it, or But all I know is that I did something and something else happened. And that's a beautiful thing.